Netanyahu is doing an April Fool's. Oh boy. I don't know if this one's an April Fool's. Israeli airstrike destroys Iranian consulate in Syria. Okay. Man, I love our great ally in the Middle East, who definitely helps project regional stability. Rogue state? Seriously. A senior Revolutionary Guards commander, Brigadier General Mohammad Reza Zahedi, was among the dead. That's great. Isn't that like an attack on Iran directly? Yeah, it might as well be. Yeah. We're never having Middle Eastern stability, dog. Holy shit. I've been hearing about this. Bibi wants to escalate. Netanyahu understands that the moment the war ends, he's out. He's insanely unpopular. The only reason he's still in power is because of October 7th and the war cabinet. So if the war never ends, he never leaves. Forever war. Hell yeah. Hezbollah, hell yeah. The Houthis, sure, we'll find a way. Iran, hell yeah. That's a big enemy. Senior commander of the Revolutionary Guards overseas operations. Several diplomats were among the dead. Would Biden back Bibi in a full-scale war in Syria Part 2? Well, the war wouldn't be with Syria, really. Syria is just like a festering corpse of a failed state occupied by 50 different, terrorist and paramilitary groups. It's Iran here that's the issue, and Iran is a real country with a real military. Iran says the response will be harsh. Rogue state shit, man. Anyway, if you're asking if Biden would support Netanyahu in a war with Iran, you have to forgive me for my naivete, but I must. Okay, I have to say this. I feel like that might actually be a real red line. There are limits, and dragging the entire Middle East into, the largest regional war in decades might actually be one. I don't know. Maybe he would. Maybe he would. Maybe Biden would go the Iran axis of terror, we gotta support our... But who knows? Previous red lines have been crossed. Yes, but this would be a far larger red line to cross. But, who knows? Why the hell would Israel do that? They're warmongering ethno-nationalist fascists. And Netanyahu wants to keep the war going. Because they're evil. Netanyahu's government, I should say, not the Israeli people. Only about half of the Israeli people are evil. Are they trying to goad Hezbollah into actually attacking? That's Lebanon, different country. But, this isn't going to help. Vosh, the Israeli population is pretty uniquely Hitlerite. Yeah, think of them kind of like the Russian population. Civilians are civilians, but they're subjected to a non-stop barrage of propaganda convincing them that being Hitler is the only way to be, Biden absolutely would support Israel in a regional war against Iran. Look, I'm not going to argue. I'm not arguing this point. Maybe not. I don't know. I don't think anyone here, including myself, can fully appreciate just how destabilizing that would be. We're talking about an incomprehensible escalation that would be a net negative for literally every... Actually, there is exactly one entity that would benefit from this, and it would be the Ayatollah. That is it. Iran would never lose such a war. Maybe they wouldn't, make any gains, but they wouldn't lose Iran, and it would legitimize Islamic rule of Iran for another 50 years. How far are Iranian nukes? Nobody knows. We don't think they have them yet, but we're not exactly operating on the best intel. Netanyahu's government's also trying to draft Haredis, which is causing instability in the government. Yeah, the ultra-Orthodox. Man, this guy really doesn't want to go to war. If they have them, would Israel back off? I don't know. I'm not psychic. Israel is uniquely vulnerable to nuclear retaliation, though, because their nation is so small. Whatever nukes Iran will develop in the future will be small nukes, but Israel is small enough that you have a proportionally devastating target for nuclear reprisal either way. Iran, comparably, is a difficult target to nuke because a lot of it is just empty mountain ranges that are, essentially nature's fortification. What are the odds that Bibi goes nuclear? Literally? I don't know. They're not zero. Would Iran give a shit about hitting neighboring countries? Yes, absolutely. 100% yes. Iran isn't just like North Korea or whatever. Iran has ties to a bunch of local countries, both to their governments and to ethnic and martial groups within them. There's no reason Iran would want to destabilize those relationships by being gung-ho with their nukes. Anyway, I don't think things are going to go nuclear. If Iran nuked Israel, wouldn't that fuck over Palestine as well? You're making the mistake of assuming they would give a shit. Also, not necessarily. Also, if there was nuclear war, I think Israel would be the one to start it. I think that Israel is a less rational actor than Iran by far at this point. I think the Ayatollah and the revolutionary government of Iran are more rational actors. They've acted consistently in their own best interest, or at least pretty close to it for a while. Israel has literally just been like shitting the bed and tearing up the cushions for a while. It's insane. They're not even acting in their own best interest, really. It's just Netanyahu trying to cling on to power. How much support would Israel actually lose if they nuked someone? This is, again, I speak to my naivete here, but I think if Israel even tried to actually use their nuclear weapons, I'm thinking media blackout, 24 hours of silence, Shmeten Shmahu is in charge of Israel after the lights come back on. They're like, whoa, you know, Netanyahu, he fell down the stairs, we're really sorry. Hey, sorry, man, we're going to take the government in a whole new direction. You know, that's my hope. This might be like a pseudo-conspiratorial belief that I have in that it's a desire for there to be some control and order in the world, but I would like to believe with the immense power of the United States that we do have some kind of contingency for this behavior that isn't like, you know, just let them nuke the Middle East. That's like a hope, you know? Mossad is insane but not suicidal. They could do it themselves. Oh, who knows? So if that happened, would we even know it happened? I don't know. We're really far into speculation territory here. I can't really say. I gotta say, though, man, striking the goddamn consulate? Jesus Christ. This is the expression of a man who has to open a State Department press briefing with, let's start with Gaza. You know, this is the perfect expression to enter into that, you know, that realm with.
In terms of the Secretary?
Come on, Vosh, it's April Fool's, go easy. Fine. Mods unban Michael Seraph.
His involvement or the State Department's involvement with this meeting, virtual meeting today, can you tell us with the Israelis about Rafah?
So the Secretary is at the White House right now, participating in the meeting with representatives of the Israeli government to lay out an alternative approach to...
Is a consulate a reasonable military target? No, it is like the least reasonable military target. It is like the most like instigatory but militarily ineffective target possible. It is like it's remarkably so. Yeah, it's a civilian building, and it's not just a civilian building. It's like a government civilian, like it's ridiculous.
Dealing with the remaining Hamas battalions in Rafah. When I walked out, the meeting had not yet broken, or at least I'm not aware of it yet having broken, and expect a statement from the White House upon its conclusion.
Okay. Well, was there anything specifically that the State Department wanted to convey, to get across to the Israelis in this meeting?
Does anybody have a timestamp for when they mentioned the attack on the consulate?
So I don't want to speak too specifically about the meeting. That is, it would be great if Hamas would stop hiding behind civilians and stop hiding inside civilian infrastructure, including hospitals. But two,
inside the skulls of Palestinian children, right? It's very mean of them to hide there.
Points out what we have been saying all along, which is the need for Israel to have a sustainable long-term strategy when it comes to Gaza, that it's not enough to just clear certain neighborhoods or hospitals or any other geographic areas or buildings of Hamas. They need to have a long-term sustainable strategy that is not just a security strategy, but also a political...
Why do all American spokesmen look like greasy used car salesmen? I'm not joking when I say this, and I know chat's going to groan, but a lot of it is the poor fits.
Strategy if they really want to secure the future of Israel against the terrorist threat that has to date emanated from Gaza.
Right, so you don't have any comment on what you've seen from the aftermath of the 2-week operation against the...
I want to see mention of the...
and then when
itself against those opponents.
4415-ish is when it first gets accessed. Okay, 4415.
Plan that Israel is supposed to present to you.
Why don't we just wait? I think I've probably talked enough about these ongoing talks. Let's wait for what we'll have to say about them at the conclusion. Go ahead. Yeah.
Lebanon, you've been saying you are trying to resolve the issue on the northern borders diplomatically. You've been successful so far, but are you concerned that now it's been escalating for the last 2 weeks?
Conflict and what we're going to continue to for Gaza and the West Bank and the Palestinians, how to rebuild Gaza.
The U.S. ambassador met the KDP leader twice. So do you have any concern that the election, the carry?
No.
Come back to you about Yeah, we could do. It seems like we could do the whole briefing on it. So we'll move on for now and then come back if there's more time. Go ahead. I promise.
Per the CBS 60 Minutes reporting that aired on Sunday, a first incident of Havana syndrome took place in Frankfurt with an employee of the
What?
U.S. consulate. This happened 2 years before the already known cases that occurred in Havana in 2016. Can you confirm there was an incident in 2014, at least one incident in Frankfurt, that led to apparent Havana syndrome symptoms?
So we have made it a practice to not confirm or comment on specific reports.
Decision taken like recently.
So I think it would be helpful to step back and put this in a little context. And the context is that the United States has a decades-long commitment to Israel's security. Israel is surrounded by entities that are sworn to its destruction, not just Hamas, but Iran and proxy groups that Iran sponsors, Hezbollah among them, who have repeatedly talked about their desire for the destruction of Israel. We believe Israel has every right to defend itself against those opponents, and we, to that end, have a long-standing security relationship with them where we provide them more than $3 billion annually in security assistance. Now, the way that works...
Israel made peace with almost all of its immediate neighbors. No, yeah, that's the funny thing, you know? People talk about Israel being under constant threat, but honestly, like, up until Netanyahu's government, things had been kind of like turning down, you know? There had been improvements diplomatically. Even under Netanyahu's government, like, there had been improvements diplomatically because, you know, other countries in the Middle East also kind of don't want constant permanent war. Like, there are radical Islamist groups, a lot of them funded by Iran, but also, like, you know, things have mellowed out, at least to some extent, but this is elevating everything. It's making it way more dangerous for Israelis.
I know you preface this in your question, but just for the benefit of everyone else, the way that works is we provide them with $3.3 billion a year.
I don't think I'm going to find the part with the
They don't always
consulate
draw
strike,
all of that
guys.
down in any given year, but they come to the United States, request certain defense articles. We make assessments about whether those are appropriate or not. We notify them to Congress in the regular course of business. And oftentimes what happens, let's say, just as an example, this is a fictional example, let's say they requested 100 planes. We make a decision, we notify Congress. That doesn't mean that they take 100 planes tomorrow once that notification has been given and once the approval has been given. They draw those down over time, and sometimes it takes years to fulfill those requests. And so those are the types of things that I see.
Is it me or is he nervous? To an extent, yeah. Nobody in the State Department is happy right now. A bunch of people literally resigned over what's happening right now in Gaza. They're not happy. You know, they have to toe the line. They're government employees, after all, not ideologues or politicians. Their job is to represent the interests and will of the executive branch. They don't have like an they're not fully autonomous, you know? So they're kind of in a position where they have to constantly defend like lunatic shit, and there's not really anything they can do, you know?
Wanting to go, bear with me. I know this is long, and then you'll have the opportunity for follow-up. Those are the types of things that often take years to fulfill, and they were happening before October 7th, and they have continued after October 7th. So what these are about, in many cases, are about self-defense, but also deterrence and replenishment. And so we make these in the regular course of business. And what I can tell you about them is that we follow the same procedures with respect to everyone that we do for every other country in the world, which is that we notify Congress. And in fact, since October 7th, we have gone above and beyond to notify Congress about these transfers. There is a statutory threshold where we are required to notify them of transfers. We have been regularly briefing the committees to make them aware of every transfer that we are making.
So I'm going to have to combine my questions now that you've taken up so much time for that answer. I understand.
I would apologize, but I don't think you'd believe it.
I'm just joking. Of course, take your time. I understand the fulfillment can take years, but are you basically saying that the authorization of the transfer coming in these recent weeks was a coincidence?
So I'm not saying it's a coincidence that Israel has been engaged in a military conflict. And of course, when you are engaged in a military conflict, you deplete your military stocks.
So there was a request in recent weeks for the additional fulfillment of these particular weapons.
As is always the case, I'm not getting into the timings of exact requests from here. I'll be quick. But this is a process that we keep Congress fully apprised of, our relevant committees. But when you see these types of requests and when they get publicly reported, you have to remember that Israel is in an armed conflict and is expending a great deal of defense material, and some of that needs to be replenished.
Yeah, those civilians don't kill themselves.
Right. And my final thing on this is, like, Secretary and a lot of senior officials from this administration basically said far too many Palestinians have been killed. But when you go...
Is this not the lady that mentions the goddamn consulate attack? Are we never going to find that mentioned?
And we know that the administration's policy hasn't changed. It is not conditioning weapons to Israel. But when you go and make such an authorization of the transfer in recent weeks, even if the actual weapons transfer has been approved years ago, don't you think that is going to damage the weight of your word, your credibility, and basically your sincerity in saying that far too many Palestinians have
So
been killed.
I do not agree with that at all. We have been very clear that we want to see Israel do everything it can to minimize civilian casualties. We have made clear that they need to do that they need to operate
Banning
at
the
all times.
use of the word ceasefire from the State Department. It's the beginning of her questions. Neptune, you're really throwing me for a loop here.
To offer today.
Okay, two final things. This is about this is from last week about these authorizations of these bombs to Israel. They have been approved a long time ago by Congress, but looks like the department has decided
No.
to an assessment on how many civilians around that operation have been killed.
We do not.
Okay. Moving on to this strike, this suspected Israeli strike
There we
in
go.
Damascus. Do you have anything to say on this? from
I don't.
the state?
Obviously, it just happened in the hour or two before I came out here. We are in conversations with partners in the region, gathering more.
Yeah, he can't say anything because he hasn't been briefed on it. Like the strike would have happened like right before he went out there. So he's not going to be able to say much on it.
Information, but at this point don't have confirmation either of the target or the responsible party.
Do you know if the United States was given a heads up by Israel about this?
Again,
That's always a really good sign, by the way, of how confident like we are in our greatest ally in the Middle East, that we're not only saying, yeah, we don't know what happened or how it happened, we don't even know who did it. That just, it really signals the level of communication and trust going on between America and Israel, where, you know, I have a feeling that as soon as the strike was reported, there were a bunch of American State Department officials crossing their fingers and praying to God that it was ISIS or something, you know, and not Israel. Like, please God, let it be like that strike on the Soleimani Memorial in Iran. Please God, let it have been ISIS. Please don't let it be Israel.
we are gathering information. I don't have anything about the strike right now. I don't have anything beyond that to offer.
Okay, do you have any concerns that this might sort of escalate tensions, which are already high?
So.
And in a way endanger the hostage talks in any way?
I don't want to, before we have gathered information about what exactly this was, I don't want to speak to it specifically, but of course we are always concerned about anything that would be escalatory or cause an increase in conflict in the region.
ISIS hates Iran, right? Yeah, ISIS hates everyone.
Has been one of the goals of this administration since October 7th to keep the conflict from spreading, recognizing that Israel has the right to defend itself from adversaries that are sworn to its destruction. But with respect to the hostage talks, there's no reason why this.
Yeah, he immediately pivots away from the topic. We're going to hear more stuff. We're going to hear more stuff about this in the future. Attacking a consulate while there's like a military leader there is a pretty big deal. 17 minutes ago, top Iran general killed. Wait, a second separate one? Iran confirms top general killed. Yeah, the brigadier general, right? The same guy, I assume. There weren't two big pants guys in there at once, right? Why does it not say who it is? It just says, is there like a read more? It doesn't say who. I think they're referring to the brigadier general. See, it's right next to the embassy. Is Haaretz Zionist? Haaretz is like the best source of journalism that we have in Israel. I mean, they have a bunch of different writers. I'm sure none of the writers in Haaretz believe that Israel should like not exist or whatever, but they do relatively good reporting considering the authoritarian crackdown. There were 3 high-level people in the building who died. Well, can you give me an article that says who those 3 high-level people are? They killed 3 generals. 3 generals? General Hossein Aminullah, Chief of General Staff, Syria and Lebanon. Major General Haj Rahimi, Commander Palestine. Oh, that's why. That's the excuse. Only finding information from the strike. These were major IRGC commanders for Iran proxies in Gaza, Lebanon, and Syria. Could be a decapitation strike before main operation for the IDF. Yeah, that's what I'm... So they had intel in the consulate. Presumably those 3 generals aren't there 100% of the time. They struck when they were there. PIJ leader might have been killed. Israel reportedly killed Ziad al-Nakhala, the Secretary General of Palestinian Islamic Jihad, in a strike on the Iranian ambassador's residence in Damascus, Syria, next to the Iranian embassy. Oh, man. Okay, look, there are 2 reasons why Israel is doing this, okay? One of them is to prove that it can, and one of them is, as you said, a decapitation strike before, like, a real military move. Killing 4 leaders in a single strike, allegedly, apparently, they haven't confirmed Ziad al-Nakhala, his death. PIJ is the 2nd largest militant group. Yeah, Islamic Jihad. Yeah, Israel's having a bit of April Fool's moment. So Rafah is going to be leveled. This isn't really a Rafah thing. Guys, I don't know. I don't know what the immediate consequences of this would be. I mean, it could be just a flex, but I wonder if this is being done in preparation for something. We would know if the IDF was like lining up with Hezbollah or whatever. Could Iran respond by intervening in Gaza? No. That would be an invasion of Israel, which would not be in their interest. Could this be a distraction from Rafah? Maybe. Yeah, to an extent. It's possible, yeah. That they want to sort of like finish the job and cleanse Rafah, but they want to do it under the cloak of a different like story, a different narrative, you know, some other big event, kind of the way they did those missile strikes in Rafah right as the Super Bowl began, you know? It's possible. I don't know if that would be a main motivation, though. Could Iran respond with a bomb? A bomb? I don't know how much that would do. Genuine question. Iran gets openly bombed by Israel a lot. Why doesn't it openly attack back? As far as it knows, Iran just sticks to doing support. Because Israel is much, much, much stronger than Iran is in any kind of like direct exchange of conflict. Because Israel's backed by the entire Western world, and Iran is backed by... I mean, they might get some support from like Russia or China, but not to any meaningful, not in a way that would overwhelm Israel. IDF spokesman Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari said the drone that hit the Eilat naval base overnight was made in Iran and the attack was directed by Iran. The drone was apparently launched from Iraq by an Iran-backed militia. This is a very serious incident. I don't know about this incident. Eilat naval base? I don't know about this incident. You're saying it's I don't think this is retaliation, though. It happened too quickly. They wouldn't fire a retaliatory strike and kill 4, like, military leaders just like that, you know, like in like 5 hours or whatever. There have been unconfirmed reports of IDF troops removing minefields in the Golan Heights. I hope those are unconfirmed. Syrian and Hezbollah sources are claiming the IDF has begun to remove several minefields in the northern Golan Heights in a possible attempt to avoid a direct offensive against Hezbollah in southern Lebanon instead of bypass it towards central parts of the country. Boy. Will Biden support them if they invade Syria? I don't know. I'm not psychic. You're asking, every time you ask me a question like that, you're asking me to like stake my reputation and legitimacy on a claim that no one knows 100%. Look, the Biden administration isn't happy with what Israel's doing right now. I have a feeling they're going to get increasingly unhappy if they start making territorial gains. I mean, America shut that down in the past too. I don't know. I mean, maybe. If they killed 4 officials, then I'm almost 100% sure they're about to do something crazy. Yeah, maybe. Could this be an attempt by Israel to consolidate Western support? Possibly, but if they wanted to consolidate Western support, why would they act as the aggressors? Military, you know, doing a strike on a consulate and then clearing minefields to prep for an invasion, that's you being the aggressor. You know, the narrative that you would want is that, like, Hezbollah is invading you. You would want to, like, stage a false flag operation or something. It's not like it would be the first time Israel did that. Yeah, I don't really, but who knows? Like, they could just be going silly mode, you know? They could just be going maximum silly mode. They wouldn't invade Syria if they don't need to. They just killed Assad. Syria would collapse overnight. If they did a strike on, it's different. Attacking Assad would be different than attacking the people they've been attacking. They can't just do that. I mean, they can do that, I guess, you know? But also, that's Syria. This is Lebanon, you know? Also, I really don't think that Israel wants to deal with Hezbollah and, you know, the coalition of forces in Syria at the same time. Guys, I don't know. This is potentially really bad. I don't see any official reporting on Golan Heights minefields being cleared, so I'm still not entirely, like, sure of that. I mean, we do have confirmation about the strike on the consulate, though, so... Guys, it's not the end of humanity. Will you all calm down? End of the world on everything with you people, honestly. Maybe Netanyahu is trying to instigate a broader war as a pretext for becoming a full dictator. I mean, yeah, possibly. Or something in that ballpark. Yeah, the strike was incredibly accurate. They didn't damage the embassy. Well, for some people, it's quite scary because they live in those areas. Okay, leaving aside my I guess, incredulity at the idea that those end-of-the-world posts are coming from people living in the Golan Heights or whatever. Like, it's still not the end of the world, you know. People get that way anytime nukes are mentioned. Syria and Lebanon don't have nukes. Neither does Iran, yet. So we do have confirmation of the people who have been killed, those generals, right? I just want to make very clear, Iran state media have confirmed the following Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps officials were killed in the suspected Israeli airstrike defense, and then it's these 3 right here. Haj Rahimi, Hossein Aminullah, and Mohammed Reza Zahidi, which is the one that I'm seeing said most often, but they're specifically referring to people killed in the strike, but I'm only seeing some sources that are saying 3 targets were attacked. The name of the 3 martyrs of the Israeli attack on the consulate: Brigadier General Mohammed Reza Zahidi, Brigadier Hossein Aminullah, Chief of General Staff of IRGC Quds Force, and Major General Haj Rahimi. Okay, so a major Iranian newspaper is saying that these 3 were martyred in the attack. That seems like a pretty decent confirmation, even if it's not being discussed broadly. I guess we'll see in the future. Thank you, Comrade Robin Hood. IDF Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Herzi Halevi approved new plans at the Northern Command headquarters in Safed earlier today, the military says. Plan for continuation of the fighting were approved by an assessment of Halevi, the commander of the Northern Command, Major General Uri Gordian, and members of the General Staff, the IDF adds. So, Northern Command, that's Hezbollah. It's not surprising that they would continue military operations in the area because, you know, tensions are still high with Hezbollah, but it just really makes me wonder if this is like, if groundwork is being laid for greater conflict, you know? Promise a harsh response to strike on consulate in Syria. Isn't targeting embassies and consulates a war crime? I think it depends on the circumstances. I think you would have a pretty hard time justifying an attack on a consulate. It was filled with military leaders, but there often are military leaders in consulates and embassies. The White House did not immediately reply to a request for comment. That's not surprising. It's Sky News. Do you think Israel is biting off more than it can chew? That really depends on how far America goes to support them. Is it fair to say that even Russia never pulled any shit as blatantly warmongery as this? No, that's not fair to say. Russia invaded and occupied the Donbass for like 8 years, you know, supplying military equipment. Like, they literally invaded and occupied part of Ukraine. It doesn't really compare. Is this more or less serious than when the U.S. killed Soleimani? I mean, they're not really comparable because Iran can't do anything to America. This is much more like regionally relevant. You know, this is part of an ongoing series of escalations. The Soleimani thing was like totally just out of hat, like yeehaw, howdy, howdy, wacky American behavior, which, not to say it wasn't wretched, and very bad, it was, but it doesn't really contribute to any broader conflict between us and Iran. This, on the other hand, if this escalated into a war, what would you say would happen if the U.S. intervened? I guess it really depends on the level of threat present to Israel. If we decide to get involved in a conflict between Israel and Hezbollah, we would probably park our ships on the Red Sea and fire inward. You know, we would do like bombing runs and air raids. If it was something like with Syria, we could fire in to an extent, right? Like, we're getting kind of further from the coast. If it was something with Iran, which is very, very unlikely, I don't know. We're so out there into speculation territory, you know. Red Sea, not the Mediterranean. Oh, Mediterranean, sorry. When did you first become Iran-pilled? I don't know what you mean by Iran-pilled. I don't know. Maybe the secret to peace in the Middle East doesn't involve, like, constantly agitating the most, you know, regional power there. I don't know. Possibly, maybe, perhaps. You're saying peace involves not fighting? Yeah. I like your Iran cultural regional power supremacy takes. I just wonder if anything in particular helped you get there. Not really. It's just like, you know, you have to accept the world as it is. And from a sociological angle, you have to understand that, like, we're not invading Iran, conquering it, and building a new government. And even if we did, it wouldn't be a good idea, right? Like, what we want Iran to do is not be led by the Ayatollah. We want it to be led by a more moderate government. That would solve a lot of problems in the region because Iran funds so many militia groups, right? So we want Iran to change for the better. How do we do that? Probably not by constantly escalating and antagonizing and attacking them, right? I just, like, yeah, you know, and a lot of other positions, like, you know, kind of go out from there. You know, there's a lot of stuff that follows from that naturally. Iran won't change anytime soon, so it won't matter. I wouldn't be so sure. The hijabi protests last year were, like, unprecedented in their size and scope. It led to a lot of government pressure, and the cracks, you know, which have been present for a long time, have grown larger in terms of the government's control. You know, I think that Iran is in a position where it could very well be made a better country, you know, better than the Ayatollah. But every time we do shit like this, or allow Israel to do shit like this, we increase the likelihood that the Ayatollah will be able to capitalize on it and sort of, like, you know, defend their... Not really, though. The Gulf states and Turkey still hate Iran. That, first of all, Turkey, nobody cares. Second of all, the Gulf states are just petrodollar, like, billionaire pedophile slave dens. I don't give a shit about the Gulf states. They don't even exist to me. I reject their existence. Peh. Ridiculous. Saudi Arabia isn't a country, okay? It's Saudi Aramco with borders, you know? Like, you're telling me the UAE... Have you seen the population of the UAE? It's like 500 people. Oh, here we go. Here's the UAE. More than half of the UAE is literally just slaves. That's the male surplus, this dark blue. There are like 3 times as many men as there are women, and a ton of them are just like people who are brought in to do construction as basically slaves. Like, these aren't real countries. They're just oil companies that have borders. It's like the UAE, Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia doesn't even have real culture. You know that, right? They just make so much money off their oil that they pay everyone a UBI to shut the fuck up. Like that's it, literally. They don't even have a civil society. Your job as a citizen of Saudi Arabia is to keep the lights on and just sit and like collect checks so that you don't revolt. That's it. Where will we get our Hamas propaganda now? Al Jazeera isn't perfect, but, you know, what media organization is?